Welcome, everybody, to the Unnormalized Podcast. This is your host, Frankie A. And today this has been an interview in the making that I've been very eager to get this next person on, just because I think she's phenomenal and she is inspiring to me, and just all her experiences, they're just so juicy, and I think you guys are going to love her. So today, as my special guest, I have Aliya S. King. Now, Aliya has a lot of stuff, so I can spend a whole hour just going over all her experiences that you guys are gonna eat up. But she is a New York Times best-selling co-author of Keeping the Faith with Faith Evans. You know, everybody knows her, loves her for the days of hip hop, doing her thing. And Aliya is also the editor-at-large for BET Digital Networks. And those are just I mean, if you go over to Aliya's bio, you'll see there's no way that I can get all of her experiences in an intro. So I just wanted to have her on because, as you guys know, the Normalized Podcast is about one, pop culture. Everybody knows I kind of do the pop culture thing. But two, the premise is to speak to people who have done tremendous amount of things with their life and success, not following the conventional paths. So that means speaking to people like Aliya, who have these phenomenal experiences in what she does. And I'm going to allow her to kind of go through everything that she does do in her craft, and how you can turn something like a dream or something unconventional into reality, into being a normalized way of life that you can make success and enjoy life to its fullest. So, Aliya, why don't we just start by tell us, I mean, I kind of know, but I want our viewers to know, where did you come up from? And
Okay.
First of all, let me tell you, Aliya was not happy with me that we were doing video. So she's going to, in the process of our whole conversation, is going to, not that I don't know why she just feels like she needs to make herself even more beautiful, because she just is beautiful. But
I just want to pop it up just a bit. You know what I mean?
Do your thing. Do your thing. This is how we roll here at the Unnormalized Podcast. We keep it, we keep it real. So Aliya's going to talk to us while she gets herself all popping the way that she wants to be popped. So Aliya, tell everybody, where's your background? Where did you come up from? All that kind of stuff.
So I'm from East Orange, New Jersey, born and raised. It's where I sit right now as I speak with you. Even though the part of East Orange that I live in is now gentrified, and they've allowed my building to call itself Bloomfield, even though it's not Bloomfield, it's East Orange. It is what it is. Because they realized that people were not going to pay $5,000 a month to live in East Orange, so they had to change the town. That's another story for another day. Born and raised in East Orange, very unnormalized way of living. Born and raised in East Orange. East Orange, as a community, as a city, is the backbone of my life. It is the normalized part of my life. So normalized, in fact, that sending me out into the world to wreck shit and wreck shop, I can only be my unnormalized self because I came from a community of people who were normalized and pushed me out into the world with the freedom to do that. So whenever I can, I talk about, I'll put East Orange into one tiny tidbit for you. When I got to Rutgers University after I graduated from high school, this freshman there, one day we were all showing each other our yearbooks. You're from Montclair, you're from Camden, you're from Minneapolis, whatever. We're all looking at yearbooks. And this one girl says to me, wow, they made a misprint on your yearbook because it says that this woman right here is the principal. Mrs. Irene Nichols, Black woman, principal for many years. This girl could not believe that I would have a Black woman principal. So I said, that's not a misprint, that's my principal. And she was like, you had a woman who's your principal of your school? And I was like, well, shit, yeah. And she was like, a
Mm-hmm.
black woman? She thought it would be a misprint before she thought that would be my life. It was that day, after living there my whole life, that I realized what kind of community that I come from. Because
Yeah.
I was used to saying I was from East Orange and people being like, oh, where's your gun? Oh, where's your crack?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was never my reality. So it wasn't until I went to Rutgers and saw people reacting to what I knew, where I come from, what I lived, that I started to realize how special East Orange was. So that's when
I can identify with that because I'm a white boy who grew up in the city of Newark.
Mhm.
So, when I bump into people and I tell them, because I big up Newark, I don't live in Newark anymore. I live right by the beach, boy, but I always will call Newark my home because that's where my foundation is and that's my roots are. And people are shocked, and you came up with, you said something that was really poignant to me, and that was that East Orange was gave you kind of like the moxie to go out there into the
Absolutely.
world. And I don't think I could have done the things that I've done in my life and got past challenges that I have in my life if, I know that kind of sounds weird, but like if I came from anywhere else, because the bricks gave me the balls to, like, not settle for
The ovaries, you
just,
mean?
yeah. They did, it makes you up a certain kind of person.
Yep.
And I think especially in industries like yourself, where you have to be like on your hustle, you have to be, acceptable to hearing the yeses and hearing the nos and not taking the nos, and getting yourself down on yourself, and letting that be discouraging to you. It kind of gives you that drive and that fire to
Absolutely.
turn that no into a yes.
I came from East Orange thinking that there was literally nothing. I never thought there was anything that I would be able to not do. And I
Yeah.
graduated from school early. So at 16, I was in the world like, well, whatever I want to do, I'm going to do it. It never dawned on me, to me and many of my friends, that there was stuff that we couldn't do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I grew up in my circle too. We always had big dreams, big hopes, and still do. And there's not really much that came in the way of. I mean, life gives you a bag of shit, and you got to like deal with it. But I think that if I grew up anywhere else, and I'm just speaking for myself, that if I grew up anywhere else, the life shit would have stunted me, and that would have been my story, and that's where it would have ended.
Correct.
But because of how I was raised and where I came from, it gave me like that spitfire to just say, hell no, I'm gonna take this life and I'm gonna spin it on its head, and I'm gonna take control of it. It's gonna be the way that I want it
Also,
to be.
also for me, I have to say that I grew up, in East Orange in the 80s, and I was seeing a lot of what would become huge pop culture stuff,
Mm.
face to face.
Yeah.
And for example, when I was in high school, there was this act called New Style who would come to all the talent shows and just kill it. And I remember telling my mom, "Can you come to this show?" I'm asking my mom to come to a talent show, and I was like, "But mom, these guys are really good. I really want you to see them." And she's like, "Okay." So she goes to the talent show. It was crowded. Da da da. That group a year later became Naughty by Nature. And so when
Stop it.
they were called New Style. They had these little green and white jackets that everybody used to wear. They had a dancer who broke his leg and then became known for dancing on crutches. And then even when his leg got better, he still danced on crutches. So I saw them become something, and I saw them work toward their dream. Also, Chino Excel,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he was my neighbor growing up, Derek Barbosa, and I saw him perform. I'm getting chills now just thinking about it. I saw Derek perform many times growing up, and he just always made me believe that as a writer, I could find my audience. I wasn't a rapper, but the way he approached hip hop,
Yeah.
just before I could understand what I was feeling about it, I just remember looking up to him so very much. So you got Naughty around the corner, you got Derek, you got Lords of the Underground, you got Channel Live. Like hip hop, of course, was a big part, of East Orange in the 80s, and it would become a big part of me. So even though I was never a rapper, and I wasn't even really a hip hop head, I was more of a Luther Vandross, Mariah Carey head. but
Yeah.
I was informed by hip hop. I was boiled in it.
And big up to Do It All. I just had Do It All on
Yeah.
my show, and I have to say, what a phenomenal one. Of course, he's from the Brick, so he's like family. But what a phenomenal way, Aliya, that man treated me as an interviewer, like as if he was giving an interview to like somebody from Rolling Stone magazine.
Sure.
And
I've
it was
interviewed him several times, and he's always just awesome.
phenomenal.
From 1998, that's just always been his deal. Like, he's going to be professional.
And it was like really a great interview. But so yeah, like I actually was raised in the hip hop culture, so like the experiences that you talk about, like seeing some of these now big people, like I remember like hearing about like Lauryn Hill and the Fugees.
Yeah.
Growing up in Newark and hearing them doing big things before they even got out there. And, to see that. And it was phenomenal about a couple of years ago. Now I'm going to name drop. I was at Mayor Ras Baraka's birthday party, and I was injured. So they had to move me up from my table to another table where it's accessible. And I actually got to be like real front and center for Lauryn Hill, because he's really good friends with Lauryn Hill.
Of course.
He was on Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. So I actually got to be at like the front table for her to perform, and she did like basically it was like a Fugees reunion without the Fugees there, but just Lauryn Hill. So like I was like geeking out, like it was one of the best. I'm such a Lauryn Hill head, so that was like a whole, like geeked out moment that I had. But, so we do have that in common about like growing up in or around that hip hop culture. Like now, for people I alluded to in the beginning, Aliya, so you are a phenomenal writer.
Thank you. I think so.
Yeah, well, a lot of people do. And that just in the testament by all the achievements that you've had. So getting into something like that, and that's why I like to talk about people who kind of are in different types of experiences, whether it be professionally or what have you. A writer is something that a lot of people feel like they would want to maybe develop from a dream into like a career success. When you were saying to like your family, like, hey, I want to do this. I have a talent. I'm a writer, and I really want to do this for like my living, for my career. This is all that I want to do. How did your family react? Were they supportive with stuff like that?
Not at all.
And it's funny because I like doing this podcast. That's a commonality that everybody who has been successful in doing these things has that same experience.
Yeah, my parents were, working class Black folks who, had made a pretty big leap from what their own parents were able to provide for them. And college was definitely not optional. I always knew I was going to go to college. But when I said I wanted to major in creative writing, journalism, that just was not going to be allowed. They told me that they would not pay for school if I didn't major in something that would lead to a traditional career. And I was hurt. I was hurt because my parents knew that's who I was since I was 4 years old. I did not get to the end of high school and be like, I think I want to be a writer. Like, y'all know who I am. And I've been writing for as long as I could hold a pencil. But the older I get and the more I raise my own babies, I see that it was just concern. Like, we don't want you to end up saddled with student loan debt and not able to get a job. And in 1989, it wasn't, there weren't a lot of writing jobs out there. I also was really confused because I always felt like they thought I could do anything I wanted. So when it was time for me to test your theory that I'm the best thing ever, you're telling me to go get a sensible job.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, when we said you're the best thing ever, we meant at getting a sensible job, not at like, parachuting.
Yeah.
I would have been better off telling them I wanted to join the circus. So I majored in history instead, with the idea that I would get a certification to teach history. And I went to Rutgers University and did just that. And one of the saddest things, I actually majored in African American history, which I loved. And I eventually became grateful that I had a certification. But every semester, so that's 8 times, at the start of the semester, when it was time to pick out my classes and I would go see my advisor, I would say, I'll come back tomorrow. And I would take the bus to the communications building on the College Ave campus in New Brunswick. And I would go up the steps and look at all the students who were writing down the classes they wanted to take and just read them and read all these classes: intro to creative writing, intro to noveling, intro to fiction writing, intro to music journalism, and my heart would just pound because I knew I belonged in there. I knew it. I knew for a fact that I was supposed to be. And the idea that somebody could take 5 of those classes and that's your whole semester. I always managed to take at least one writing class because at least one English class is going to cross-pollinate with history. So I always got to take at least one. But when I saw those, I would do that every single semester and just be in tears that wasn't my life.
And you know what? It's something, not to diss or downplay any other person's unconventional career path, but there's something about the creative, the fine arts, all that kind of stuff, that you have. It's like an inner voice that tells you what you should be doing. It's almost like a whisper. I know it's kind of corny, but Oprah Winfrey always says you have to pay attention to the whispers because in the whispers is the message. And I did dance my whole life, was growing up in the hip hop culture, dancing hip hop, and that's how I would feel like when experiences and taking dance classes and things like that, it would like give me this like sense of like I was being pulled towards it.
Yeah.
And I didn't follow that path because the parents were like, no, you're going to college and that's it. But even still today, there are certain things that I am drawn to magnetically, and they're always around like stuff like doing like this podcast, like creative stuff, using all my creative energies. So I can identify with that, going up there and saying like, there's something drawing me every semester to come up here and look at these classes because you needed to see like that actually could be something like you can take a full course load of everything that you love to want to be part of.
Yep. And you can also still make it without having done that, because I have never taken a journalism class, so I did all right for myself, considering I never got to take those classes.
Yeah, you've done pretty well for yourself. So let's talk about that. So you graduated from Rutgers, right?
Yep.
What was the defining moment that you basically said, I'm going to be a writer, and this is... What was your first monumental thing that solidified it for you that yes, I am a writer?
So I graduated in 94. Between 94 and 98, I was teaching, and I was still writing just for myself. My best friend, Ukachi Arinze, he lived in Brooklyn at the time, and every weekend I would go to his apartment in Brooklyn, and I would write short stories. I would write whatever I could, but not professionally. In 1998, I got a story published in Black Enterprise magazine. That was spring of 98. That was the first time I ever saw my name in print in a national magazine. And that was it. I was still teaching at the time. That was in probably April. And I said, I don't know how it's going to work out, but I'm not coming back here next year. This is it. Story was like 500 words long. Yeah. It wasn't a big deal. It was about get this, how to buy a laptop. over the phone. How to buy
Nice.
one over the phone in case you can't make it to the store. You can call Compact and get a Presario delivered to your door. And it
Listen,
had, all these like little tips and shit. It was
but
pretty
listen,
fun.
I bet you motherfuckers went out and bought the laptop though.
Yes, they did. So I was really sort of freaked out by the level of editing that took place. I kind of
Hmm.
thought when I handed in the story that was it. It was 500 words and it was good. So when I saw how it got sliced and diced and I got my ass handed to me on the edits, I was like, wow, okay, I'm ready. So that June, 2 months later, I found out about a program at Harvard University called the Radcliffe Publishing Course, a 6-week course to help folks who want to transition into journalism. It's mainly for folks that are just coming fresh out of college, and I had already
Okay.
been out for, about 4 years. So I was not the target. But I saw the ad while I was giving out the final exam to my kids. So I know it was June. And when the exam was over, I ran upstairs to the teacher's room and I called. And the director of the program, Lindy Hess, answered the phone. And I told her my whole story in like 30 seconds. And I was like, I need to be there and I need to do this. I got my first clip and I want to be a writer. And please, 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 please. And she said, well, the deadline's tomorrow, but you sound really amazing. Send me all your stuff and I'll definitely make sure we try to get you in here next summer. And I was like, I've never been known to wait for shit. Like,
Yeah.
that's never been my deal. I've never been able to do that. So I asked her what was necessary, and she told me, and she said, have it ready for me. You send it in early. So I needed my college transcripts from Rutgers, 2 letters of recommendations, and a personal statement. So I went to my principal and said, cough, cough, I'm sick. And I left, and I drove to New Brunswick, and I got my transcripts. I came back up to the school and said, I'm better. And went to I was a teacher at the school I graduated from. So I
Okay.
went to my English teacher and said, you need to write me a letter of recommendation for this program. And she's like, sure, give me a week. I was like, no, you have to do it actually right now while I'm standing here.
Right.
I
Right
got
this
the
second.
letters. I read the personal essay question. I went to the library and typed it, and I drove to Cambridge, Massachusetts the next morning, knocked on that woman's door and said, I'm Aliya King. I talked to you yesterday. Here's my application. And she was like, no, I meant you still have to get your transcripts. It's here. You need a letter. It's here. The person is here. It's all here. And she was like, let's take a walk. And I just remember taking this really awesome walk through Harvard, and she's asking me questions about myself. And she finally said, we'll be in touch. I can't promise you anything, but we'll be in touch. And she said, the class is $5,000 for the summer. Will you be able to afford that? And I said, no. And she said, well, how much could you afford? And I was like, I can't afford anything because I can't ask parents because they're not going to support this.
Yeah.
I said, I need you to let me in for this summer, and I need all the money, all of it. And she's looking at me like, this heifer, what is going on here? So a week later, I got this package in the mail. I got into the program with a full scholarship.
Nice.
So.
And for everybody who's listening, I implore you to not only hear the words, and that alone in Aliya's story is powerful, but maybe have your kids sit down and watch this podcast, because they need to understand that persistence, determination pays off more than anything else in life. And Aliya is a testament to that story. Is, you cannot take no. You cannot take we'll wait, next term or next position that we have open. It's the moxie, it's having the drive and the determination. And this is why I do this podcast, because if Aliya went down that conventional road, she probably would, just knowing her and her personality, she would do that with anything. But most people would not have that fire in their belly and that persistence for something they don't have drive and a passion and a sense of purpose for. But when you add a personality like Aliya and that drive, that passion, that life mission, watch out, she's dangerous. She's not gonna, I love that story, and that's something that I, even after this podcast, will have my 17-year-old son, who is graduating this coming year, sit down and listen to, because sometimes, when parents hear it, or the kids hear it from their parents, it kind of goes in one ear out the other. Wah, wah, wah. We sound like the Charlie Brown teacher. But when they look at people like Aliya and see what she has accomplished and how she got there, it just didn't come overnight and on a silver platter.
No.
The girl has worked hard and for where she is now. And I think that gives me the chills, and that's the reason why I love talking to people like you, Aliya, is because it gives me, at 43 years old, who's still kind of like navigating through challenges of life and finding purpose and all that. It's a good way to just keep that instilled in myself. Like, I can always turn back and look at someone like Aliya and say, damn, I need to get my shit together. I need to stop feeling sorry for myself. I need to get off my ass, because if this is what I want and this is what I really, have a desire to do and a mission and a purpose, then I can't just allow life to dictate that. I need to take the reins of it. So
I have to do that with myself. Like, I'm far enough removed from 1998 Aliya that I have to remind myself of what I've been able to do and what I've been able to accomplish, and how I very often have to think everything that's happening for me in my life right now, and I'm on a fucking tear right now, by the way, and all of that, everything that I have going on for myself right now is thanks to 1998 Aliya. I owe my entire career to this girl.
Yeah.
To this girl who was like, we about to get this popping. Every job, every assignment, every sweet situation that comes my way, I can show you how it points back to me back then. Even if I'm not to be quite frank, I'm not nearly as driven as I was 20 years ago. I'm just not. And I think that some people on a certain trajectory might become more driven as they go on. I'm not. And I'll tell anybody that. I'm not as driven, and I'm okay with that. I work smarter, not harder, or try to. But I also try to remember that I can chill a bit because of the fact that this girl moved into her cubicle at Billboard and worked 24 hours a day. I can chill because she worked 7 days a week for 10 years and blogged 7 days a week for 3 years. I can relax a little bit.
Yeah.
Because she worked so hard for me.
Yeah. And tell us some about, like I said before, you have a resume that is full of like just badass, awesome stuff. So talk to me, like, how did you get into like some of, like, you've done stuff for like BET, you've done stuff for, or you're still doing stuff for BET, correct? And you've done some for some really big publications. How did you make that? Was it just like a culmination of projects, or was it something that you sought out? Did they seek you out?
So my story begins, and this is so crazy because you're going to kill me. Where are you down the shore? Are you in Belmar?
I am in Point Pleasant Beach, girl.
How far is that from Asbury Park?
So I am about a good, like, on a good day, like probably 15, 20 minutes.
Ugh. Okay, so I went to Asbury Park. I was in Asbury Park the other day, and I was like, I kept saying to my boyfriend, because I didn't really publicize it because I live in, like, who's coming down to the shore to see me do an event?
Yeah.
But I was like, the whole time we took the train down, I was like, I'm telling you, I'm forgetting to tell someone. And he's like, who? Do you know somebody? I was like, I just know I want to tell someone who's in the area to come to this event. Not until I got there. I was like, Frankie, oh! Anyway, the Asbury Park Press does this event 4 times a year, the Storytellers event. And they have people come in and tell stories. And although it freaks me out and scares the crap out of me, I still do it if they ask me to. So that was on Wednesday. I went down there and did that. And the theme of the event was, it sounded like a good idea at the time. And as soon as they told me that, I knew that for me, that would be how I got into national magazines, which would be working at Billboard. My first job was at Billboard. I was an editorial assistant, and they did not let me write. I just did faxes and, coffee and all that kind of stuff. And one day I got a fax. Well, I didn't. Somebody there got a fax. And it was an advertisement about Wyclef Jean's annual benefit concert for Haiti. He had it in Miami every year. And I decided to cash in my chips. I had a friend named Marcus who worked at The Source. I need to say for the record that in 1998, The Source was the preeminent magazine on music, not hip-hop, on music.
Yeah.
In 1998, Jan Winter, the owner of Rolling Stone and Spin, offered the owner of The Source $30 million cash for that magazine because that's how valuable it was. Mm-hmm. And the owner turned it down. So they had been just nominated for a National Magazine Award, and yet we're still hood, and got the best of the best on the cover. It was everything. So for me to know someone there, I had just kept waiting for a reason to call him. So I called Marcus and said, "Are you covering the concert?" And he said, "No, it's in Miami. I wouldn't be sending somebody down there." And I was like, "Well, I'm going to be in Miami." And he was like, "Oh, you didn't say that." And of course I didn't say that because I wasn't going to be in Miami. And he was like, "Wait, you're going to be there?" I was like, "Yes." He's like, "All right, cool. Since you're going to be there, give me 300 words. So I have chills right now thinking about Marcus telling me that I, Aliya King, 3 months removed from the classroom, I've just finished up my course, and I'm at Billboard, is telling me to write a story for The Source. I don't care that it's 300 words. This is freaking just not possible.
Yeah, it could have been copy. It could have been copy at that point.
So he called me 2 hours later and said, "I have to cancel." And I was like, and he said, "We don't have a photographer down there, and I'm not sending one down there, and I don't want photos from other places." And I was like, "But I told you I was going down there with Anton Lindor, who's like the biggest hip hop photojournalist right now." And he was like, "What's his name?" I was like, "Anton Lindor." He was like, "I did not know that." So he's going to be there? And I was like, "Yes." "And he'll shoot for us?" "Yes." "All right, it's back on. When you get down there, give me 300 words. You don't have to interview anybody, but just do your thing." Anton Lindor was my best friend.
Oh, nice.
Who was a third-year law student at Rutgers, not a photojournalist. And his mother worked at Delta. So I called Anton and I said, "What are you doing this weekend?" He was like, "I'm studying for the bar like every weekend. What do you want, Aliya?" Because I was full of the last-minute harebrained scheme. And I told him, "You have to come to Miami and pretend to be a photographer because I'm going to Miami to pretend to be a journalist, and we have to do this." He said, "Okay." We go down, and the publicist, God rest her soul, Leslie Pitts, she said, "You can talk to whoever you want. You're here with The Source. That's fine. But it's a short story. So don't talk to Clef because I'm his personal publicist and I'll be running all his interviews and you don't need to talk to him. So don't." I said, "Fine. I think you know where this is going."
Yeah.
After an hour of doing backstage interviews with everyone from Naughty by Nature, we had a moment. They were like, "East Orange." Didn't know my name. But they knew I was from East Orange. I'll take it. Destiny's Child, a brand new Destiny's Child. They had been booed off the stage. People were throwing bottles at them. And I interviewed Beyonce. I saw Clef and I said, I could just hear Marcus. I was like, Marcus would be so impressed if I came back with quotes from Clef. And then I could hear Leslie saying, "Don't talk to him." Backcourt. So Clef is in this heated debate with this other dude. And I was like, watched him for a while. And I was like, F it. I walked over. I interrupt. I'm like, "Clef, can I just have 5 minutes?" And he was like, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Aliya S. King. I'm with The Source." So the dude he's talking to was like, "Ooh." And Clef's like, "Okay." So he steps over and he's like, "Okay, what's up?" So I talked to him. "How's the concert? How much money? Da-da-da." And then I'm like, "Why did you break Lauren's heart?" And he's like,
"Yes."
Who the F? And I'm like, "Are you the reason why the Fugees are breaking up? Did you hear her song Lost Ones? Is she talking about you? What's the political climate in Port-au-Prince right now? Do you think you'll ever run for president?" So
Yes.
After a while, he was like, "Aliya, I'm done. Thank you." And he was like, "And you're with The Source?" I was like, "Yes, The Source." He was like, "Is this story about me?" And I was like, "It might be. I don't know. But I'm with The Source."
That's great. I love it.
Who he's talking to comes over to me afterwards and he's like, "Wow, you went in." And I was like, "Yeah, well, I'm with The Source." So, and he said, "Well, my name is Selwyn and I'm the editor-in-chief of The Source. So it's nice to meet you."
No. That is priceless. Oh my God, that is great. Oh my,
So
that's
I just died inside. Everything in me just died. And when I was telling the story last week in Asbury Park, like no matter how many times I tell that story, my stomach still feels the same way it did when he said that to me. Because I
yeah.
just wanted to die. I thought he was gonna throw me out, get me arrested, whatever. And I was like, oh my God, it's so nice to meet you. And he was like, yeah, it's nice to meet you too. And he was like, who is the editor on this story? And I said, Marcus Reeves. And he was like, did he fly you down here? And I was like, no. And he was like, you flew yourself down here? I was like, yeah. For a 300-word story? I was like, yeah. He was like, do we have a photographer here? And I was like, oh my God. I turned and point to Anton. He looks a hot mess. He has no idea what he's doing, shooting with the lens cap on, all of it. It's just a mess. And he was like, that's your photographer. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, okay. And I said, I'm sorry. This is really important to me, and I really want to make a great impression, and I know I probably haven't done that. He gave me his card. He said, actually, when we get back to New York, can you please call my assistant and set up a meeting? Because if there's a young lady, I'll never forget, if there's a young lady flying herself around the country to write for my magazine, I think I should probably meet with her. And I said, you should.
Get it. Get it.
I met with him when we got back to New York, and I stayed up for like 2 days straight and came up with, for some reason I remember it was 21 stories that I thought would make sense for the magazine. And I was hoping he would at least assign me one of them. And we met, he seemed a little lukewarm, whatever. And he called me a couple weeks later and he said, I read all your stories and I don't want you to write one of them. I want you to write all of them. And
What?
I'm hiring as our new staff writer. So be here on Monday. Welcome to The Source.
What, girl? Like that is like, well, that just goes to show you, like you could have went there. You could have asked Clef like the normal questions that you thought the source wanted you to go ask him, if you even were going to meet with him.
Mm-hmm.
But you had to be genuine and authentic to Aliya too, and look where that got you.
It really
Because
jump-started I'd already gotten to Billboard, and I wouldn't have gotten to the concert were it not me working at Billboard.
Mhm.
So that part was important. But in terms of, like, not only did that jump me off at The Source, but a year later, Vibe calls me up, and the editor of Vibe says, I want you to interview Charlie Baltimore for a story we're doing on the loves of Big. And it's widely understood that she was
Yes.
the true love of his life.
yeah,
That
yep.
they were very serious when he passed, and even Faith will tell you that.
Yeah.
She respected Charlie's place in his life. So they wanted me to interview her, and I said, I gotta ask, why me? And she was like, well, I heard you ask Clef why he broke Lauren's heart at an interview one time. So if you can ask Clef that, then you could do anything. So I don't know how she found that out. It was only Clef and Selwyn there. But word has spread that I didn't give a damn about asking him anything. And it ended up getting me into both The Source and Vibe magazine.
Good.
So,
Yeah. No, well, that's again the authenticity of you, because if you went in there and you did what maybe any other journalist would have done and just asked like the nice fluffy questions, he maybe not have take noticed, you know what I mean, of who you really were. And I think that was in that moment he said, okay, this is what I want representing The Source. Is I want someone who's not going to be afraid to ask the hard-hitting questions and the questions that people would want to know, especially at that time.
Right.
Everyone was asking that question, like, Lauren's head is so messed up. Like, we all know what was going on, on the outside, but,
right.
I
think I had a level of comfort as well because he's from from Jersey. He spent some time in East Orange. And so although I had never met or dealt with him before, there was still, I don't know if I would have stepped to someone else like that.
Yeah.
But I had a level of comfort with him that.
Yeah, we Jersey, especially, like from those areas like Newark and, East Orange, Irvington, Elizabeth, we all have a way of like communicating with each other that from the outside people may be like, that's a little like rough around the edges, but
Correct.
people from where we're from know that that's how when you're keeping it real, and um we get drawn to that. You know,
Yep.
we open up to stuff like that. We know that's home
Yep.
when someone's coming at us like that. So
Yep.
if anybody else would have probably tried that, maybe it wouldn't have been, the come off wouldn't have been
Right.
that great to it.
Right.
But because he's from our neck of the woods, he was able to say, "Oh, okay, like I can't fuck with her.
Right.
Let me
Go
let me
ahead.
just, yeah, let me just go ahead and do this and give
Of
her
course,
her."
also he was humoring the hell out of me because now that I realize that I'm saying I'm from the source and someone's standing right there talking to Clef, they're both just like, all right, let's see what kind of hole she's about to dig for herself because they both knew.
Yeah, but Aliya doesn't seem like she ever can dig herself out of a hole. So
Right.
like, I don't know if they would have been waiting out for a really long time, waiting for you to like,
Right. To see.
falter or
Right.
to
Right.
scramble, because I don't think that you even have it in you to let people see that side. But you did mention Faith.
Mm-hmm.
So you did co-author her book,
Yep.
correct?
I did.
Okay. So, oh my God, like Leah, like you like, I don't know how you stay so like humble with all the stuff that you've done. Like,
My bank account keeps me humble.
oh well, that's,
Because
yeah.
my bank account is very humble.
Like,
And my
I got
children and their college funds keep me humble. But no,
you.
I understand what you mean. I have been trying lately to stick my chest out a bit more, because I've accomplished more than I could have ever dreamed of, ever. And I was a big dreamer.
Mhm.
And I'm 45 and I accomplished more by 35 than I thought I would for my entire career.
Yeah.
So I'm working on feeling that way. And with Faith, particularly because that was my first book, and because my first book made the New York Times bestsellers list the first week out, like some authors will wait their whole life and
Yeah.
never make the list. Not that that's the end all be all, but it's a marker.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will never make the list. And it doesn't say anything about their careers as writers. It's just a plus thing that you
Yeah.
might get and you might not. So for me to have gotten that the first time out with Faith, who took a chance on me because someone of her stature, they told her that you need to get a writer who's already done this. You
Mhm.
cannot get a new writer who's never written a book to do this. And she told the publisher, I'm going to get who I think is going to write the best book. I don't care. And I know who it is, and she hasn't written a book, but she's doing it. And that was me. And
Nice.
I was freaked out when she told me that.
And
Completely.
and like, what is that process like? For Aaliyah, I'm gonna have her talk about it. So in a little bit, about some of the educational and mentorship and consulting stuff that she does for writers. So I don't want her to give the bank away, because you guys want her expertise and her talents and her,
And plus, I give it all away every Thursday at 8 o'clock. So, I mean,
yeah,
every Wednesday at 8 o'clock, I do Facebook, Instagram Live, and I give it all away, much to
yeah.
my managers.
So I want you guys, we'll give you all the ways that you can get linked up to Aaliyah. But how does like how do you prepare for something like that as a writer, um, when you're working with someone, writing with them, because the book is about her life, correct, right?
Correct.
So when you're sitting down with somebody and you're writing, well, basically helping them co-author a book about themselves, like, how do you prepare for something like that? What is the process? Like, how long, like, like, how long of a process does it usually take for you to do something like that?
I have to say, with Faith, it was really smooth and easy. So much so that all the projects after that, I've just been like, because they're not smooth and easy.
Yeah.
And I was really spoiled by her because number one, I already know a lot of her story. Most of us do.
Yeah.
Number two, she knows a lot of her story. She has a good memory. She keeps good. She has photos. You know, she doesn't have to be like, I don't know when that happened. Like she knows what award she got, when, what album came out, when it came out. She's really good with all that. And then she was open. Like she was really open. And schedule-wise, we just got into a really good rhythm. Prior to us signing the contracts to work on the book together, we were both pregnant at the time, and I had my baby. No, she had her baby first, and then a week later, I had my baby. So as soon as the babies were like a couple weeks old, we started talking on the phone 3 times a week. And because we were both nursing, we're both changing that, like we just kind of sort of had the same rhythm, and it was just like, oh, Ryder's crawling, yep, Maisie's crawling too. So that helped too, that we were in the same zone. So it was just literally get on the phone, talk for 2 hours, and I literally started with tell me your first memory. And I listened as she talked. I recorded, but I also typed as she was talking. And then I would stop her. And then I call her the next time and say, hey, we left off. You were in the 3rd grade. What happened after that? Just literally just like that. And that's my process. And I would say because of that, I would say maybe 30% of that became the book. Okay. But I had to do it that way just so, because maybe only 30% became the book. But hearing how she talked helped me talk like her. And hearing different things. And also being able to interrupt her sometimes and say, wait, that wasn't, you said in 6th grade this happened, so Puffy couldn't have said this to you at this time. You know, little things like that. So even though I didn't use all of it, I literally have her life story. But a memoir is literally just French for memory. And it's just a bit. It doesn't have to be from the day you were born until the day you whatever. That's an autobiography. It's not a memoir.
Yeah.
So for her, it was pretty smooth. I think the most difficult part was talking about Big. Talking about
when did she come out with the book?
That was 2009.
2009. Okay.
Yeah, 2009. So talking about Big was fine, but it took a while for us to get through the chapter about his death and going to LA with Miss Wallace and identifying his body and choosing what he was going to be buried in and going to see him at the funeral home. Like that chapter was really difficult.
You're giving me chills just even talking about it.
It was really tough. It was really tough. I remember when she went to go identify the body, she was actually like not looking forward to it, but just kind of like trudging through it. Like this is a thing that we can do and then move on. And Miss Wallace really, you know, as soon as Miss Wallace got off the plane, Faith was like, this is the first thing we're going to do just so you can understand that this is real and he's gone and we need to do the next step. And when they got to the police station or wherever they go for that, they just handed them a Polaroid. It was like, here. And Faith was like, what are you talking about? We're not going to identify him from a picture. We need to see his body. And they were like, you can't see the body because it's still a crime scene and we're still doing this and we're still doing that. And they had to identify his body from a photo of him at the hospital.
That's so fucked up.
And Miss Wallace was just torn apart. And the thing that makes those things difficult is because when I'm talking to her in 2007, I think it was, we ain't that removed from it.
Yeah, no, that's why I asked you when.
Right, it was 10 years. And also, there would have been no, you know, everything was as fresh in 2007 when we were talking as it was in 1997 when it happened. So, but overall, it was pretty smooth. Frank Lucas.
I was just going to say that. Because I've heard, you know, I watch Aliya's lives just because I am like a under low-key trying to be like writer myself. Always have been. Actually, journalism was my major in college when I first went, but now I do social work. But and I was a chef, so the writing never kind of came to fruition. But I follow Aliya's lives and stuff because it's something that I maybe want to start exploring. And I know that Aliya has talked about this infamous writing experience that she had with Frank Lucas. So for those, Aaliyah, because we may have some young cats out there who don't know who Frank Lucas is, YouTube anything Frank Lucas, and you will see um, who he was. So when she tells the story, it kind of gives you like a foresight into who she was dealing with. But tell them a little bit about who Frank Lucas was and how this all came into you writing this book with him.
So Frank Lucas was an infamous heroin dealer in the 60s and 70s. Denzel Washington played him in a movie called American Gangster. He was nominated for an Oscar. So Frank did some time in prison, off and on. He got out. He sold his story to New York Magazine. Not sold his story. There was a story written about him in New York Magazine by Mark Jacobson, and then that story was optioned to make the movie. But what happened was when the movie came out, Frank felt like it didn't really capture why he became the villain that he did become. He never felt like he always felt like I know what I did wrong in this life, but I need people to know what happened to get me there. So he decided he wanted to write a book. But of course, nobody was interested in the book because the movie came out. The book always comes before the movie. Like nobody's trying to read some 300-page book about somebody they already saw in a movie.
Yeah.
So a lot of publishers passed, and he kept moving. He just kept saying, "I need to. I don't care. I don't care about the money. I just need this to be in a library, in a bookstore for my kids and my grandkids and my great-grandkids." So his agent, who took him on, was Faith's agent. And so after he saw what I had done with Faith, he asked my agent, can she talk to Frank? And my agent said, do you want to talk to Frank Lucas? And I was like, no. I had heard enough.
No.
He had already fired a couple writers at that point. I was like, I'm good. So Frank's agent said, can you tell her to come in just for a favor, just so I can say I brought her in, and then she doesn't have to do it. So I went in, and he was rude and not very nice. And I saw him being really rude to his staff and to other writers who had come in. I was just like, ugh. So I went into the office. He was in a wheelchair at that point. And he was like, who are you? I said, my name is Aliya S. King. And he was like, okay, Alicia, let me see your stuff. So I was like, I didn't bring any stuff, frankly. And he was like, well, how am I supposed to know what you're about, whether or not, I want to work with you? I said, I don't even want to work with you, but you could Google and see everything you need to know about me. I'm here as a favor. You're rude. Like, no. And so he looked at me and he was like, okay, all right, I'll see you on Tuesday. That's it, y'all. I'll see you on Tuesday. And I was like, oh, no, that's not it. No, sir.
Wait, hold on. No. Did you not understand when I said no?
What Tuesday? And we went back and forth. He was like, yep. All right, y'all. Sign her. Get her contract. She'll be there on Tuesday. Alicia, I'll see you on Tuesday.
Alicia.
So we go back and forth. And, I always say, like, I'm not sure, but I was there on Tuesday. Like, I can't really explain to you what happened. But I remember getting home and my husband saying, what was Frank Lucas like? And I'm like, he's a jerk. And he was like, well, you did your favor. You went in. You never have to see him again. And I was like, until Tuesday. Because
I'm coming back.
I'm going to see him. So I sat at his kitchen table 3 days a week for 18 months.
Wow.
And
that's a long time for Frank Lucas.
It's a really long time. And he was really a lot. Frank was a lot. He was cantankerous. He was grumpy. He had a wife, Julie, the same woman, the Puerto Rican woman he was married to in the movie, who was very lovely and made me breakfast every time I came in. He also had a girlfriend who he had a son with, who was in the 8th grade. And every time I came in, she would be there. She made sure she was there on the days I was there. We were like the same age. And she would be like, she ain't going to be up in here with Frank. And I'm like, the wife's making breakfast. You're sitting here. The son... It was a
shit show.
It was a mood, as the young people said. It was a whole mood. So I developed some type of, I don't want to say, I can't say I liked him. I can never say I liked Frank Lucas, but I was able to tolerate him. And I have to say that if this were 2019, I would have never worked with him. What he put me through the first week, I would have been out. There is no way that Aliya in 2019 would have ever worked with this man. I don't know what was up with 2009 Aliya, but
I don't think, but I could only imagine that probably something inside of you, as much as cantankerous he was, and like, I mean, if you guys don't know who Frank Lucas is, you'll see if you guys like YouTube videos of like interviews with him and stuff like that. He was a piece of work. So when Aliya says like the first week he was probably given a whole lot of shit, that just again is a testament to who you are, because anybody else would probably be running out there with their hair on fire.
Right. And
But
should have been, frankly.
yeah,
But
yeah,
of course, Frank passed last month,
yeah,
maybe 2 months ago.
yeah.
And of course, I can only think about how proud I am that we made it through and finished this project. And I'm glad I did it. It wouldn't exist today, but
And that's I guess what distinguishes you from maybe some other writers. Your I would hate to say your job, because basically what you do as a writer is more of a craft. So your craft at what you do will not always be with people that you agree with, that you have commonalities with. It's more of an attestment to you in your craft to be able to sit with somebody for 18 months and sit there and develop
I don't think
something.
that's a testament to me, though. I think
Now,
that's a testament to having a newborn baby and needing to eat, quite frankly.
pay the
Because,
bills.
right, I don't think that, like, just today, I turned down a very lucrative book gig with somebody that I'm just not trying to sit down with 3 days a week. I'm
Yeah.
just not. Not because I don't agree with them or not any of that. I just know what lines up with my intentions, as we say now, and that
Mhm.
ain't it.
Yeah.
So, I think it's more a testament to 10 years ago trying to buy a house and, having a very young child and all that stuff. I don't think it's a testament to my craft, quite frankly, because I think that now I'm more likely to choose based on my craft. 10 years ago, I had to do what I had to do.
Yeah, you had to pay the bills. I
I was
mean,
out in them streets doing
yeah.
whatever I had to do.
Yeah. Like I was in the culinary world, so I always just say I didn't hustle street stuff, but I hustled food.
Yep.
So,
It's
you
all a
hustled,
hustle.
yeah, you hustled words on paper, you know what I
Yep.
mean? And
Yep.
when you are determined to make it work, you gotta, sometimes take the the shit that you don't want to do, but like you said, it pays the bills. Especially when you get kids, it makes you look at things in a whole different light.
Whole nother light.
And but now that they're like, now that your kid is older, you can, and you're more in your groove. I'm glad that you can say, I wanna work with this person, I don't want to work with this person.
Hmm.
That's an amazing place to be in. And so let's talk about, because you're really selling yourself on your craft here. So people who are going to watch this, who are inspiring to be writers, to develop maybe ideas that they have, how does one connect with you in, well, first tell us, what are some of the things that you do for up and comers or people just wanting to develop their own craft?
Okay, so there's two things I do, and that is once every quarter, every couple months, I do announce on my social media feed. I put a link to my calendar, and you can book time with me for 15 minutes, which always ends up being 20 to 25 minutes, but I don't say that. 15 minutes, and you just talk to me about whatever, and I'll just give you my thoughts on. It's usually fiction that folks are working on, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's journalism. Sometimes it's freelancing. I spoke to someone yesterday who is freelancing, and she told me how she's so just kind of like disappointed because she keeps getting all these rejections from all these different publications, and
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't think she'll ever be able to break through. And I was like, wait, you're actually getting rejections? Like they're actually taking their time out to reject you? And she was
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah. And I'm like, who's rejecting you? She named Essence. She named Ebony. She's talking about L. And I'm like, you don't know that those are wins? Like,
Yeah.
that's a win. I was like, read me some. And some of them were like, great pitch, but not really for us. Girl, baby girl, that is good. You should not be disappointed about that.
Because you're at least acknowledging
they're
that
acknowledging you.
they
That
read the
means,
work.
and that if it's really a bad pitch, you're not going to hear back from them at all.
Mm-hmm.
So she mentioned one woman at Essence that she pitched to who hit her back and was like, not quite for us, but da-da-da. And I'm like, girl, I've been pitching her for 2 months and she still didn't get back to me yet. And she will. She's busy. But she read your pitch. She realized you were new and took a second to just say, no, not this. Yeah. So just that 15 minutes of that hopefully turns her around to realize, that doesn't mean don't ever pitch them again. Let's go. Now you get to tell them. Remember me? Well, I got a better idea this time.
Yeah.
So I try to do that kind of stuff that we can get to like really quickly, like what's really at work. A lot of times it turns into therapy, but it's good for me. It's just as good for me as it is for folks. So I do that every couple months. I did 8 of them last Sunday. I did 9 of them yesterday. I have 3 next Sunday, and then we're done until probably like in the fall. So that I do, and then every Wednesday at 8, I do a Facebook, Instagram Live, and that has just become like really special to me. It's a small community, and I feel safe there so far. So I say things I might not say if it ever gets to be a bigger thing than it already is.
Yeah.
But I love it. Like I love it. It's just
I love that you do it because I take away, even if you don't have aspirations to be a writer, yes, 100%. So don't think that you're only reaching those people who it's just what you're breathing into people, as far as what passion looks like, what you have to do. I forget, you were on, I think it was last week, you went live and you were talking about how somebody was coming up with like excuses and excuses and excuses and excuses and excuses, and you kept hitting them back like, well, what about this? I was thinking
that's a really interesting post.
It was like something about their kid or something.
Yep.
And you were like, well, can they eat peanut butter and jelly for one night out of the week, and so you can work on your craft? And they kept giving you excuses and excuses, and you kept like firing back at them.
Right.
I found that to be like, I'm glad that person, well, I'm not for that person, I'm being selfish here, but I'm glad that person had that experience with you, because I think even sometimes as parents, we teach our kids that they have to pursue their dreams and their goals and this and that.
Ours.
But we don't do that ourselves, and we use them as an excuse because we're either too fearful, we feel fear that we're not knowledgeable enough, or we're too old, and this and that. So we use the kids as a scapegoat, and I think that was like very powerful to me, because I'm like, yeah, she's right. I can always move things around. My kid is going to be okay.
Yep. If
I take, and I don't think you were asking that person for a lot. It was like 15, 20 minutes, or to like an hour or so.
Yep.
To just spend on doing something for their writing. And I mean, that to me, I was like, I took that away. Like, you can't make excuses for the things that you love to do.
Nope, you cannot. Just like you shouldn't let your kids do that. And it's so funny because my oldest daughter, she's 22, and she's been an artist.
Girl, you get a 22-year-old?
I know, 22 and 12.
So
the 22-year-old, she's been an artist since she was 5 years old, since she could hold a paintbrush, sketching, painting, sculpture, ceramics, printmaking. Like, that's all she's ever done. And that's all we've ever encouraged her to do. Mm-hmm. And so she knew she wanted to go to art school. She knew she wanted to go to Rhode Island School of Design when she was very young. That was like her ultimate dream. And the closer we got to graduating, she did the exact opposite of me. She told me and her dad, I want to go to Rutgers and I want to major in psychology. And we were like, what is this bitch talking about? Like, I've never even seen you. You've never even taken a psychology class. You've taken studio art like 18 times. And you do an independent study. What are you talking about? Well, art's not really dependable. And I do love psychology. Remember, I used to watch Law and Order, So basically, she was feeling like, I don't know if I can make this, if I can do this. So she was the opposite of me. Like, I wanted the chance to do it. She wanted us to not let her do it.
Yeah, she wanted you guys to give her that oh, go the softer, easier route, because she
and I
was like,
no, boo, you going to art school, and we gonna go broke getting you through, and you're gonna be a starving artist like me and your daddy, and that's how it's gonna go. Going to Rhode Island School of Design, and so she just graduated in June.
Nice.
And she loved it, and her whole life was made, and she is a professional artist now. And don't start me to crying, but it's just, you got to do it. I guess her kids, I guess, going to skip a generation, and she's going to make her kids do something sensible. I don't know, but there was no way I was going to allow her to have a sensible life.
She had, I mean, like, you can't get a better example than that. Than having a mom who she saw come up and really, like, put blood, sweat, and tears into her passion. You know what I mean? And that's what this show is about. Is like, it's easy for us to just say, this fucking shit is hard. I'm just going to go get a 9 to 5. I'm going to just skate through. There's nothing wrong with that. There's some people that are totally content and fine with that. It's okay. But most of those people have had a want, a dream, a passion, a desire to do something else, but didn't have a mom like Aliya, or didn't have someone that they can, if the parent unit wasn't that portion of it, have somebody in their community or in their network or on social media, whatever, to give them that spark, that there is a community of people out there who want to see other people do what they want to do and have passion and have a desire and a drawn to sensibility about it, and have that, you know what I mean? So your daughter, while she maybe was feeling her own, like, I don't know, but she said, she probably, said to herself somewhere along, damn, like, look at my mom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
My mom was able to do it. My mom, it's going to take hard work. Yeah, it's not the conventional route, but success comes with the blood, sweat, and tears.
Absolutely.
And I think that, I really want people out there to go to check out Aliya's stuff, especially her, if you try to take, if you're into writing and trying to get into fictional writing, or any of the services that Aliya offers, I implore you to use that as, if this is like a springboard to getting into something like that. Aliya would be the best person to kind of bring you into the fold. She's a straight shooter. She's going to tell you, like, what you need to hear versus what you want to hear. And in this industry, if that's what you want to get into, you're going to have to hear the things that you
don't want to hear.
You know what I mean? So what better way to have somebody like Aliya in your corner? And if writing is not your thing, I really want you guys to check out Aliya's live videos every week. They're inspirational, and on so many other levels beyond writing. It applies to any facet of life that you're kind of looking to get into, or improvement and all that kind of stuff. It keeps me getting that fire in my belly, especially with launching something like this where you're kind of putting yourself out there creatively. And sometimes I need to hear a little bit of Aliya S. King just to make sure, that I keep doing this, because, it may not go anywhere, but if this is what I want to do and it's giving me... That's what it is. That's what it is. You know what I mean? And if it's an audience of one, then I have an audience of one. It could be an audience of... As long as you're loving
it, it could be audience of 1, none, or 1 million. If you're loving it, then that's what's important.
Absolutely. So Aaliyah, let's talk about some things that you have coming up now.
Okay.
So I know of a couple of things. I know you got like a nice little new love boo schnickums
Oh
going
my
on.
God, are we doing that? Oh,
If you want to, you said can we talk about things? I put it in there. Were you joking around? Because we don't have to go there if you
wait,
don't
did I
want to.
say that? Oh, I
Yes,
did say that.
yes. That was. I was like, "Ooh, she goes. Is she going to
I was,
spill the
I was,
tea on my show?"
I was being sarcastic, but I'll spill tea. I don't care. I'm in love. It's
Good.
totally fine. I mean, to be quite honest with you, people don't talk about how one thing I noticed that people don't talk about when they're doing stuff like here's how we achieve or here's how we do better, here's how we write words, da da da. We don't really talk about how the personal affects all that
Yeah.
because if you're going through a divorce, it's going to be a different level. No matter how you try, it's going to be a different level. If your daughter is going off to college, it might be a different, like there are levels and what
Yeah.
you're going through outside of your craft does matter. Now, I will say particularly that I am able to separate my craft from my personal life pretty well because I had to separate my craft when I didn't have a personal life. Before relationships and kids, whatever, I was just putting everything into my work. So as I
Hmm.
started to add in those things, it wasn't really hard for me to say I need these boundaries. And as I've often said, I hope that my children don't say when they're adults, she chose writing over us, because I do have very strong boundaries when it comes to work. And
Hmm.
you will go to grandma's house for 2 days if you have to. And you do know the 3 days a week that you have Pop Tarts for dinner, and you better not interrupt me. And I have two choices. I can have them go through life and say my mom chose writing over us, or I can have them go through life and say my mom was miserable because she never got a chance to achieve her dreams. Both of
Spit
those
it.
mothers are
Yeah.
not fun mothers to have. I
No. Yeah.
much rather you have the one who gave you Pop Tarts than the one who wasn't able to achieve her dreams. And I can't achieve my dreams on a half-ass boundary.
Hmm.
I have a boundary or I do not have one.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
halfway. Um,
Hmm.
but so yeah, being in a new relationship and being all loved up, it does matter. So for example, I have a class that I teach. It's 12 weeks long, and it's not about the content. I don't read your stuff. It's just about accountability. So we set your word count. We set your days a week that you're going to write, and every Wednesday you update this file that all 10 of the people update. And on Thursdays at 7, we sit down and talk. What happened? Did you make your word count? Why not? Well, why didn't you tell your mother-in-law to go sit down somewhere if she can't
Hmm.
exit? So we just learn how to set all those boundaries and try to make our word count. And it goes all the way until September 21st. And then I start a new one. So one day in the chat, there's a chat going on while I'm doing my thing, of course, but I'm not in the chat. Those are just the other people in the chat. But I
Hmm.
for some reason, and somebody has said, like, she got a little glow going on. What's going on with her? Why is she glowing, y'all? Anybody else see this glow? And I was like, oh gosh. And I felt like because it's only 9 of us in the class, I felt like it makes sense to be like, yeah, y'all, I'm glowing because I'm booed up. And
Yeah.
that does matter. And the same way, I want to know if you're going through a tough time and that's going to, affect your writing. If things
Yeah.
are going really well, it's going to affect your writing too. I ain't wrote shit in like a month. Just keeping it ultra real. I have not.
But you're absolutely right because like anything that you're passionate about and you're putting your heart into, um, it's going to affect any relationships in different ways. It's going to affect great things and it's going to have its challenges in a relationship too. Um, because if you're the person that you're in the relationship with doesn't understand what it takes to get to a certain place, whether it just be professionally or self fulfillment, then it's always going to be like knocking at each other's heads.
Well, see,
Um,
one thing I've learned, I'm 45, I've been divorced for a couple of years now. My ex-husband is one of my closest friends. I love him to death. We're still raising our babies. But one thing I do know, I would never be in a relationship with somebody that didn't do what I do. And that sounds crazy, but I
mm,
wouldn't. I
mm,
did, never again.
mm,
I guess I'm spoiled because my husband is in the industry. My ex-husband is in the industry, and we helped each other. We kind of grew up together and pushed ourselves through the game, and I was really spoiled by that. So when I got out here in these single woman streets, I kind of thought, oh, I don't want to be with somebody who's in the industry. I want it to be fresh and engaging to them, and I want to tell
Mm-hmm.
them what I do. Nope. I want somebody who is in the trenches with me. I want somebody who reads my shit. I want
Yeah.
somebody who knows what I do. I want somebody who can command a presence in these spaces that we need to be in.
Mm-hmm.
All of that. That's
Yeah.
important to me. And
Yeah.
I didn't think it would be, but it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. And so I know you had that going on, and and that's thank you for keeping it real, because it does stuff like that does affect you, and whatever you do. I also know that I'm like totally geeking out for you, because y'all, you have to see the space that Miss Aaliyah just acquired. She makes my little setup like back here, which my son calls, like, he's like, Dad, that shit is mad ghetto. I bought like a backdrop for like $15 on Amazon.
Whatever. That's
He,
what
he
you're
was like,
supposed to
he
do.
was like, he was like, Dad, who, like, really, Dad? I'm like,
Whatever.
listen, don't knock my flow.
That's
Don't knock
right.
my flow. This is
That's
my
right.
low budget.
That's
You
right.
get down with the get down, and
That's
then
right.
and it eventually will.
You
But
know,
Miss, but Aaliyah now, Aaliyah's gigs are like dope, really, really dope.
my
So,
office is
so
crazy.
where is it exactly?
My office is at 142 Lafayette, which is literally right now. I couldn't even get near my office if I wanted to. I had to work
No,
from
no, no,
home
no.
today
Yeah.
because of the VMAs. So it's literally like if I'm looking out the window, I'm looking at the Prudential Center. So it's like 1 block away from the Prudential
Ah,
Center
okay.
downtown. Yep.
All right. I'm trying to picture what building you got.
So let's see. It was a chocolate factory. And it's on the corner. It's literally right on Railroad Crossing. You know, like where the trains go back and forth. There's a little
Yeah.
alley right there. So that way, and then Lafayette. So it's
You're gonna crack up. Yeah. I used to live, because that's where I'm from,
yep.
and I used to live in a place called the Chocolate Factory, and it was up.
That's it. Is that it?
I don't know if that's it. I mean,
What was the address? It's
uh,
definitely a chocolate factory. As a matter of fact, fun story. M&Ms were developed in this factory because soldiers during World War II really wanted chocolate, and there was no way that they could send it to them without it melting or being convenient. So they created these little pellets with this hard casing on it, so they could eat chocolate on the run, on the go, kill people, eat chocolate, whatever you guys do. And that was it. It was not designed for commercial use. It was just like
for
chocolate
military.
soldiers. And then when they came home, they're looking around at all these stores like, where are the little chocolate pellets? And then Mars decided, well, we should make those chocolate pellets. And there we go. There's M&Ms. So M&Ms
That
were born in New York.
that's crazy. So I'm wondering if it's the same place, but I may have to stop by one day and check
You
out
should.
your
No one,
office.
I don't understand. Like, I am such a geek about having an office. I'm always like, you want to come to my office? No one ever comes. No one comes
Listen,
to my office.
listen.
It makes me very upset. I have
I,
a white shag rug under my desk.
I,
Okay?
I peeped that. I was like, "Ooh, look
What's
at
that
her,
like? And then
very bougie."
they have Great Notch Coffee. It's an independently owned coffee shop that's right in the front. I have an account there. So I always tell people, come there, tell them bill it to Office 16 because I feel all fancy, and then just get yourself some coffee. Does anybody come down?
Well, listen, I'm gonna take you up on that offer, because I'm going to be coming more so to the Newark area because of my new job that I got.
Oh,
So I'll be in the area a lot more. So I
okay.
definitely will hit you up, and I will definitely come
Please
by,
do.
because I want to see it, number one. Number two, I want to see what like a real podcast studio looks
The
like.
podcast studio is so cute. Now it's like a mini. It's not like this big, huge mixers everywhere thing, but it's just like perfect. It's just like it's amazing.
Enough, but it looks phenomenal. I mean, if you saw my setup right now, we're in my room where my dog sleeps. Okay,
Okay.
so I
But
have to.
still, you're at home. That's where you want to be when you're doing this.
Yes,
You're not
and
schlepping all the way to Newark.
no, yeah, and plus, like, I want mine to be like, I want it to have that basement-y feel,
Yep.
because everything nowadays is like glitz and glammed, and
It's
I,
unnormalized.
yes, it's
Get
supposed
it?
to be like, thank you for the plug.
Yes.
And you also said that you're doing something with a reality show? Is that what you wait, you said you were like, is that not happening?
Well, it is maybe. What else did I say?
That was it.
Okay. You want to talk
Okay,
about my boyfriend a little bit more or something? Because
you can talk about what
no, I'm
you,
done. He's
you
great.
could no, you can you if you want to put a pin in that, we can
Let's put
revisit
a pin
that.
in that. Let's put a
Yeah.
pin in that.
So
Yeah.
we'll put a pin on that, and
No, but
I
honestly, and this is part of like just keeping it real for the purposes of this. It's just at the time that I wrote that, everything had been sewn up, but it's not. So money
I
is still a thing.
I
Yep.
totally get it. I know what that's like.
Correct.
So, but Aaliyah, I really, 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 I think this is like one of my favorite interviews I have done
This was so
to
fun.
date. To date, yeah, it wasn't that bad. See, it wasn't.
No, it was fun, and I got my hair done because I'm gonna
Listen,
see
it's
my
all
boo, and I got my hair done at the same
it's
time.
it's all about, see, like if I can give you that vessel where you can have the time to talk about you and get
Yep.
yourself done and looking
And
all
I put my eyebrows on because I don't
look
have
at
no
that.
eyebrows. Yep, we're good.
That's what you got to do out here in this
In the
game.
street. Yes,
Yes.
indeed. In the street.
So everybody, before I let Aaliyah go, Aaliyah, please tell everybody how they can reach out to you, how they can get you on your socials, all that kind of stuff. Because I want everyone to kind of start hitting you up for all the great things that you do. So give
So literally everything is Aliya S. King. So my name is spelled Aliya S like Sam, and then King. And when things first started to be a thing, like email and whatever, I always wanted to have a fancy name, like AliyaIsTheBest.com or whatever. And I would always get this placeholder of just like AliyaSKing.com, Facebook, Aliya S. King, Twitter, Aliya S. King. And now that's kind of become my brand because
hmm
any iteration of me that you want to find from Snapchat to Instagram to Gmail to Facebook to Twitter, um, it's all at Aliya S. King. There's literally, you can find me anywhere with just my name.
and that's your brand.
Yeah,
You are your brand.
I am my
There
brand.
is, yeah. So and that's phenomenal.
Yep.
But everyone, I want you guys all to go check out Aaliyah. When is your weekly lives? They're on
Wednesdays
Wednesdays.
at
Yeah.
8 p.m.
Okay.
I dual broadcast out of the studio at my office. I want to shout out my office. It's called Third Space Co-working, and they have just been amazing in terms of letting me have free reign to the things I want, including the podcast room. We had Bossy Ickby talking about her book, I'm Lying, But I'm Telling the Truth. We sold out this event, and she came there last week. That was amazing. We have something super, super amazing coming up in October. So shout out to Third Space for finding me and giving me a home. Um, so yeah, that's Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Live on IG and Facebook.
And I have to tell everybody, when I was sitting down thinking about what days I wanted to release my podcast, I was like, I can't do it on Wednesdays because Aaliyah does her Facebook Live on
Stop it.
Wednesdays, and I don't want to interfere with. I want to be able to like sit and like watch it, and so like that's why I released mine on Tuesdays. God's honest truth. I am not
I
making
love
that
it.
up.
I love it.
My hand to God, like that is the reason. I was like, no, like that's like my time.
Time. Well,
I'm
I am. My producer is putting together a podcast based on all
oh,
my Facebook Lives, which
oh, cool.
I never considered doing because I'm a writer and not an anything elser. So
Yeah.
he just was like, why don't you make a season out of all these? So I don't know if it should make sense to come on before the actual one or after. Maybe it'll be on the same day. I don't know.
They could, the technology now, like they can do it. Like you can do your Facebook Live, not to tell your producer what he's doing,
Mm,
because he probably knows a lot more than I do, but you can like do your Facebook Live, and then like within an hour of you coming off the air, they can release everything like on all
everything.
the,
Yeah.
tell him to check out Anchor. I'm sure he probably knows what Anchor is, but tell
Okay.
him to check that out. That makes it a lot easier. That's what I use.
But no, I meant like, what about the previous episodes that we want to redo? Do we do those like every Wednesday after my regular one? Then
Oh,
do
I
a
see.
one from 3 months ago or 4 months ago, or what? Or maybe you just put all of those out at once, so you could just binge whenever you want.
Yeah, I think you could just do that. Like, it's like watching Netflix. You get it all in one shot, and you binge your heart's desire. That makes them want more, and then they go fiending afterwards when they can't binge anymore. And
I'm excited.
They want more. Fun. Aliya, I think that would be a great platform for you. I think you're just like a natural. So, not that this is natural, because it's not, having camera stuck in your face and you're talking about you. But I think that it would be great, just a great addition for the people that you support in what you do. I think it would, because Facebook Lives are great. People watch them, but like me, when I watch like something like a podcast that like really resonates with me, I need to rewatch it back. I need to like rewind certain things. Oh, what did she say? Let me take it back. Okay, let me make note of that. Let me do what I got to do. All that kind of stuff. So hey, just another form to put Aliya S. King out there. I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. We can all use just a little bit more of Aliya S. King in our lives. Yay. So, Aliya, thanks again for being on the show. I really appreciate your time.
Me. You're so good.
Oh, well, thank you. And I will come definitely down to check the offices out. So I will reach out to you soon and get that all, probably sooner rather than later.
Please do. I'm there every day, literally 7 days a week.
Just so we can have our own chit-chat off of, everybody's face. I have some things that Miss Aliya, needs, like, that I want to communicate with her about. That you guys, I don't want you guys knowing about. So, Aliya, thanks again. Please, everybody, go as soon as you listen to this podcast or hear this podcast, watch this podcast, go to Facebook, go to Twitter, go to Instagram, Aliya S. King, and hit follow, hit like. You will not be disappointed. You could thank me later for just connecting with Aliya. I think it'll make you better in being a parent, being a better writer, being a better artist, being a better 9-to-5er if that's what you want to do. It's something that I think everyone can take something away from. So please do not hesitate. Do not walk, run to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Aliya S. King. And everybody, it's been a great show. And again, I thank Aliya for coming on and giving us all her experiences and all her knowledge. It's been an absolute pleasure. Mwah, 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 mwah. And everybody, thank you for tuning in to the Unnormalized podcast, and stay unnormalized.